Good morning. So this update is long overdue, but this is the first opportunity that I've had to film it. It's been very, very busy for me the last few weeks, but I did want to give an update on how the surrogacy is going and talk about, meeting with our intended parents and kind of like what's going to happen from here. So on not this past Friday, but the Friday before, we went to, we had to go to the Bay Area in order to have our medical screening, which I want to say was the 10th, October 10th, Friday, October 10th. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to check right now, but it was somewhere around that time. We had to go to the Bay Area to go to our medical screening. So we reached out to our intended parents, told them we were going to be out in that area for the day if they wanted to come and meet us. And we agreed to have breakfast prior to our medical screening. So we got there and it was just so awesome because immediately we could feel that energy between us. She hugged me, I hugged her. I could feel her excitement, but I could also feel her hesitation. I could tell she was still a little hesitant. It's a big step to trust somebody to carry your baby, So I could tell she had some reservations. What they were at the time, I wasn't sure, but by the end of the meeting, I would find out. So, we sat down, we had breakfast. It was lovely. We talked like old friends. I'm telling you, they feel like friends that I would have found, if we hadn't gone through a matching process. If we had gone through life, they are the type of people that I would have been friends with. They're in their mid-40s, so a little older than us, but we have good chemistry as friends. So that was super important to us, and the fact that we get to go through this journey with them hand in hand means a lot to us. So yeah, we had a lovely breakfast. Now, the intended dad, he wasn't able to stay as long because he had to go to work. So we only got to spend about 35 minutes with him. But with our intended mom, we got to spend about an hour and 15 minutes with her. And she had picked a little nice cafe that was right across the street from the fertility clinic that we're working with. So we were able to spend time talking with her. We talked about, pets and work and just life and parents and family, just more in depth than what we were able to do through the Skype meeting. And it was so awesome. When it was time for us to prepare to go, she was asking, so have they told you anything about what's going to happen? Like, I've been given general information, but they're not really giving out any details. I don't really know what to expect or how long this process of waiting is going to take. So I could tell then that she was anxious. So I told her, no, they haven't told me anything, but I am scheduled for an intake meeting with the fertility center coordinator today. So I'm assuming they'll go over all that with us. She was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, would you like an update? She was like, oh my goodness, I would love that. I've been wondering if it's too soon to start texting you, asking you how things are going, yada, yada, yada. And I could tell that that's where her reserve had been. Even though I had told her I would want her to be super involved, I don't think she was completely sure I meant that. So she wasn't sure if she should reach out to me. I was like, absolutely. I was like, I'll text you as soon as it's over. So when we were getting ready to leave, we hugged twice. She was super excited after I told her I would give her an update. She was just thrilled. And it was amazing to just be a part of that happiness for her. You never know how you're going to touch someone's life. And a lot of people understand what I'm doing. There's some people who still don't. But the bottom line is, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And the fact that we were matched with such an awesome family only confirmed that for me even more. So we got to the medical clinic. They took us back and we met with the coordinator. And essentially she went over, the consent forms and basically showing me what medications I would be taking. And then she also did a demo for us of how I need to do injections. So basically I will be starting birth control first. So they've been tracking my cycle for the last few months. And So when I went in, she was able to predict that my next cycle was due on the 31st, which I confirmed for her based on, you know, the calendars that I keep for myself. And so basically at this point, if my cycle comes when it's scheduled to, I will start birth control on day 2. Because after I had Lindea, my cycle changed. It used to be 28 days, but after I had her, it's more of an average of 30 days. So they want it to be on 28 days. So I will essentially start birth control on day 2 of my cycle. And then once I've started that, I will, if you've ever taken birth control pills, you know there's 3 weeks of active pills and then there's a 4th week of placebo pills or sugar pills. So I will just be taking the 3 weeks of active pills. So it's a low dose birth control pill, so it doesn't have any side effects or anything like that, which is nice. But I am supposed to take that for 3 weeks. After I've taken the birth control, then I will actually be put on I'll be put on Lupron, which is basically to suppress my own ovulation, because again, it's not my egg being used, it's a donor egg and her husband's sperm that's creating the embryo, and that will be put directly into my uterus for me to carry the baby. So they have to suppress my ovulation. Once I've started Lupron, shortly after that I'll start Delestrogen, and so basically that's just to make sure my lining is nice and plump and nice and firm. And then, you know, what she was telling me is that she wants to make sure that that my lining is about where they want it to be, which for them was 8 millimeters. So by the time you ovulate, they would ideally like your lining to be at 8 millimeters at least. So they had scheduled my appointment specifically so that I was about 5 days before ovulation, so they could see where I was on my own without medication. So they also were going to do an ultrasound later that day, which was fine. And then after I do Delestrogen, then they'll put me on progesterone. And you know, they gave me a calendar that basically showed when I would be starting each one. I will only be taking any 2 meds at a time. So as I'm transitioning off of one, I'll be getting on another. And then basically I'll be on medication as long as 10 weeks into the pregnancy, once the pregnancy is confirmed. So she went over all of that. She went over showing Ernest and I how we were supposed to do injections and things like that. So it was pretty cool to see that. And to kind of, you know, I've watched women on my Instagram go through it, but the fact that I'm going to be going through it now is just like, wow. So, so after that, they sent me over to the doctor so that I could get my physical. And I have to say, I was pretty nervous because I thought the doctor was a man, which some of you may say, oh, that's kind of strange that that makes you anxious, but I've never had a male doctor. I've always had a female doctor, and not to say that men doctors aren't professional or anything like that. It's just what I'm used to. My pediatrician was the same until I was 18 years old. She was a woman. Any doctor I've had in adulthood has been a woman, and they had to do a physical and stuff like that. So when I saw the doctor's name, I assumed it was a man because the coordinator's name on the paperwork had been her first name. So I assumed the doctor's name, it was male, and I assumed it was a doctor, but it was her last name. So I had been freaking out before. I was telling my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, I know I can do this, but geez, it's like nerve-wracking. I'm getting anxiety. You know, I don't know how I'm going to feel about having a male doctor perform the procedure, but I'm willing to do it. So I started praying, and sure enough, it was a female doctor. So that was kind of a relief. It was a little bit more comfortable for me. So she came in, she went over the risks. You will hear that time and time again. That's something they constantly go over. So we went over that information, and then she did an ultrasound. She wanted to see where I was, and like I said, the lining, they wanted it to be at an 8. Now, when I told this story to my mom, I thought my lining was an 8.8. It turns out it was actually like a 9.36 or something like that. So it was actually well above what they were looking for it to be, and I was still 5 days away from ovulation. So that makes me even more confident, because when I told my mom, I was like, well, it was above 8, but I think it was like 8.8 or something like that, which is still good. But it was even better than that. So that makes me happy that my lining was nice and thick and ready to go. So yeah, so there was that. And then so they did the ultrasound, and then they what happened after that? They did a physical. So after they did the ultrasound, she also went ahead and did a mock transfer. So basically she wanted to put the catheter up through my cervix into my uterus, just to make sure that it could actually be done and there was no kind of obstructions or anything that she wasn't aware of, or if there was a certain way she needed to put in, she would know it well before the date. It did not hurt at all. You know, it was actually, she had to use the catheter, and it was totally fine. It didn't hurt at all. So now I know what to expect on the day of the transfer. It literally takes a couple of seconds. It was awesome. So there was no issues there. So she was actually able to give the clear that day on my physical. After I had my physical and my ultrasound to confirm that I was cleared to be a gestational carrier, finally, so this was the final step in saying, yes, her body is physically able to do this. Even though I've been cleared on every other front with the social workers and the psych evaluation, this was the final step before we finalized our contracts to say that I was fit to do it. So after they did my physical, Ernest and I had to do blood work. And so what they told us is that they would do blood, STD testing and, anything that could potentially affect me through bodily fluids, which is why Ernest had to get a blood test done as well. So they test him because he has been my one and only partner ever. So he has to be tested to make sure that he doesn't have anything that could possibly affect me through bodily fluids. So some people ask me that question, why did your husband have to get a blood test? Well, they had to make sure he doesn't have any STDs or anything like that because he is my sexual partner. So we are still cleared to have sex and stuff like that when they tell us it's okay. There will be a certain period of abstinence, which once they go over that with me, I'll tell you guys. But for now, as long as we're using protection and stuff like that, we're cleared. So once we did the blood work, that was all finished, and then we were able to leave. Now, before we went in there, the day before, I had actually gotten an email from my attorney saying that our contract had been finished, so we needed to sign it, send it over to my attorney so that she could send it back to my intended parents' attorney. And then once they got my results back, they could go ahead and finalize their contract, because we had finished all of the revisions. I had mentioned that before. We were in the process of doing revisions. And so we finally came to an agreement on everything. So we went ahead, because we found a UPS store that was full service around the corner from where we were at the fertility clinic. So we were able to have it printed. We were able to have it signed in front of a notary. We were able to have the signed page scanned to my lawyer and have it packaged and mailed off so that she had the original by the next day. And so it was nice to be able to kill two birds with one stone. We went out there for the medical screening. We got all that done. And then as far as the blood work was concerned, they actually rushed that. So when I was talking to the coordinator, she said sometimes it could take up to 2 weeks, but they actually put in a rush for it. And the thing that made me feel really good too was because she told me, she just kept saying, I'm so glad this is finally happening for them. We've been working with them for over 2 years, and to see that they're just such an amazing couple, and she is such an amazing woman. Like the things that she has had to go through, it almost had me in tears. The things that she's had to go through to get here, I know that sounds familiar to myself and to some of the other women that follow our journey and who have followed it from before I even had Lindea. We all know what that feels like, to know how hard it is on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis to deal with what we've been through. So she was like, she's just such a phenomenal person. I just can't believe that this is finally happening. So we're going to rush your blood work so that we can get it back and get you started right away. So we went in, like I said, that Friday. They had put in a rush order to have the blood work back no later than Wednesday or Thursday of the following week. So it was only going to take about 4 or 5 business days for them to process it. So once I got the clearance for my physical, we were just waiting for the clearance from my blood work, and then we were going to be able to proceed, and from Ernest's blood work. So then the following week, we got it back, the blood work back. So everything came back normal except for my vitamin D. My vitamin D levels were pretty low. It was like a 12.6 when it should be somewhere around between 30 and 100. And so I was telling the coordinator, I was like, I told everybody my daughter was sucking me dry. Because I always joke about that. Like, when she is just a little nursing machine, you know? So I always tell them, like, my back is hurting, I'm tired, you know, and it's because my vitamin D is low. So I've heard from some friends of mine who are also nursing moms that their levels got low from nursing and from going through pregnancy and stuff like that. So all they had to do was they recommended that I go get a vitamin D supplement, which I've started. I was also given the clearance to start my prenatals. So as of right now, I am on a daily basis taking for the surrogacy vitamin D supplements, vitamin D3 supplements, and then taking my prenatal. When day 2 of my cycle comes around, when day 1 comes, I have to notify the clinic so that they can confirm that our calendar is still set. So they created a mock calendar based on when I'm supposed to start my cycle, when I should start the birth control, when I should start the fertility meds. If everything goes as scheduled, I will actually be doing the embryo transfer on December 14th or 15th. So that's super exciting. That's around the corner. But yeah, so at this point, once I do the meds, then I'll be doing the transfer. And then when I was telling my mom the story, I realized, because they will do the transfer 4 or 5 days after that, I can take a home pregnancy test, which I probably will do. But they will confirm it 9 days after transfer with a blood test to confirm that I'm pregnant. And I just realized that that's right before Christmas. Like, how awesome would that be for them to get a baby for Christmas, you guys? There were so many years where I just wanted to get a positive pregnancy test for Christmas, and unfortunately mine were always negative, you know, and it was very hard getting through the holidays when we were going through that. You know, people would be pregnant around me or just having babies, and they would be celebrating Christmas, and I'd be walking around the stores doing Christmas shopping, seeing all these pregnant bellies and all these adorable babies. It was just hard, you know. So it would just mean the world if, you know, God bless them through me to have a baby for Christmas, you know, not in their arms, but on the way. That's great. That's like the best Christmas gift a mom could and a dad could get. So I just ask that you guys pray for that, because that's when our transfer is scheduled. So basically at this point, because my vitamin D levels are low, they're going to test me again in a month. So I'm on a regimen to try to get my levels up. It doesn't slow anything down. They just want to monitor my levels to make sure that they're climbing and that we can get them into a normal range, which, based on the regimen that I'm doing, I believe we will be able to do. So with prayer, I will continue to move forward. So at this point, the last thing that happened was after my blood work came back, we got notification from our intended parents lawyer that they had finalized our contract. So we are officially in a legally binded contract to where we are going to help them have a baby. So everything at this point is done. All we're waiting for is the meds to begin. I've already started supplements and vitamins. And once that's done, then we will be going through the embryo transfer. So it's getting real, you guys. I know a lot of this has been talking, but it's a lot of information for me to share. And so now it's about to start getting down to the real stuff. So I will be showing, you know, when I start the fertility meds, how those are being administered. The birth control pills are the only pill medication I'm taking. Other than that, the other 3 medications I mentioned, the Lupron, the Delestrogen, and the progesterone, those are injections. So I will show how that's being done when the time comes. Other than that, it's just a waiting game. So right now I am 9 days away from being due to start my cycle. So in about a week and a half, if not less, I will be doing an update, letting you guys know that our IVF cycle 1 has officially started. So yeah, so keep us in prayer. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you've been through this process. If you have any tips for getting through the IVF meds, if you've done it, if you have any words of encouragement as we get closer and closer to doing this process, please feel free to share. And just continue to pray for us as we move into the next phase of this journey. It's going to be a big deal. Have a good one.